Why hadn't she moved for 14 hours? The answer was simple, because movement meant discovery and discovery meant death. Staff Sergeant Alexis Volkov lay pressed into the jagged ridge of the Hindu Kush, her body flattened against stone that leached heat into her bones. The sun scorched mercilessly, yet she remained motionless, her breathing controlled, her finger steady on the stock of her Barrett M107. Through the precision glass of her Schmidt and Bender scope, 8 Navy SEALs crept through the valley below. They didn't know she was up here. They didn't even know she existed. On the radio, Colonel Mitchell's voice cut through static like a blade. "That little girl you sent us better not slow my SEALs down, or their blood is on your hands." Alexis didn't answer. She'd heard versions of that line before. Little girl, quotas, diversity hire, labels meant to cut. She learned long ago that silence was stronger than words. Silence and results. Her pulse stayed calm. Her crosshairs glided slow as the wind over the ridgeline. She calculated drift, checked wind hold 2, 1 mil left plus 3.2 elevation. 1,000 tiny equations, each one an invisible thread tying her to the lives below. They thought they were alone, moving through hostile territory. They weren't. She was their unseen tether, their last line, their ghost. But they hadn't been told. Pride kills more soldiers than bullets, her father once told her. Looking through the scope now, Alexis wondered whether pride might kill her too. The math was simple. The story behind it was. Montana, 1997. She was 9 years old, a rifle too long for her arms nestled against her small shoulder. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine, the kind of air that burned your lungs before you got used to it. Her father's weathered hands adjusted her grip, steady and sure. "Remember, Alexis," Viktor Volkov said in his thick Belarusian accent, "wind is like water, you don't fight it, you read it." He pointed at the grass rippling across the range he'd built behind their cabin. "See how it bends, that's where your bullet will dance." The rifle cracked, echoing across the valley. The target 300 yards away shook, a hit, but not center. "Good," her father nodded. "Again." She adjusted, tried again. Another shot, closer, he smiled this time. Viktor Volkov wasn't like the other fathers in their quiet Montana town. The neighbors knew him only as the immigrant who ran a precision rifle school for law enforcement. To Alexis, he was a man who carried secrets behind his calm eyes, secrets he never spoke of. She only knew fragments. Olympic biathlon champion, Soviet defector, a man who had walked away from one world into another. That autumn afternoon, his old friend drove up in a battered truck, silver-haired and lean, the kind of man whose presence carried weight even in silence. William Thornton. Alexis called him Mr. Thornton, though he never felt like a stranger. "The girl's going to outshoot us both before she's old enough to drive," Thornton said, his voice warm, carrying both humor and truth. Alexis lowered her rifle and beamed. "Did you bring me anything?" "Alexis," Viktor scolded gently. But Thornton laughed and pulled a small wooden box from his jacket. Inside lay a compass, old, with Cyrillic markings etched into its face. "Happy birthday, little ghost," he said softly. That night, long after she was supposed to be asleep, Alexis lay awake listening through the thin walls of their cabin as the men spoke on the porch. Their voices rose and fell over the clink of glasses. "They're still looking, Viktor," Thornton warned. "Moscow doesn't forget," her father answered. "I took nothing but my freedom." "You and I both know that isn't true," Thornton said quietly. "You brought things out that they'll never forgive. And now your daughter, she's becoming quite the marksman, like father, like daughter." Her father's voice hardened. "She will have choices I never had. America will be her home." Alexis clutched the compass under her pillow, the words searing into her young mind even before she fully understood them. Secrets, choices, a past she wasn't meant to know. Years later at Fort Benning, Georgia, she stood rigid at attention, sweat cutting rivers down her spine under the punishing southern sun. 27 men beside her. She was the only woman. "Volkov," Sergeant First Class Miller barked. "Yes, Sergeant." "Your final qualification score." 19 of 20 hits, Sergeant." A murmur rippled through the formation. Only 2 had scored higher. She heard the whisper, soft but cutting, "Quota case." Miller's eyes snapped. "Drop and give me 50, Jenkins." The rest of the class dispersed. "Volkov, walk with me." Boots crunched gravel as they moved toward the range office. "You know what they're saying," Miller said. "Yes, Sergeant." "That you're only here because the Army wanted a female sniper, that standards were lowered." He stopped, looked at her hard. "We both know that's bullshit." She stayed silent. "Your final stalking exercise is tomorrow. Perfect score puts you in the top 3, but watch your 6. Not everyone wants you to succeed." That night, while cleaning her rifle, she found out how true that was. Someone had tampered with her ghillie suit, painted a bright orange marker visible only under UV light. She'd have been spotted within minutes, failed instantly. Her supervisor, Master Sergeant Torres, brought her a replacement. "A friend of yours called," he added casually. "Said to remind you the ghost leaves no footprints." Thornton, always there, always watching. The next day, Alexis disappeared into the brush, crawling silently, becoming one with earth and shadow. Hours later, she squeezed the trigger on a simulated shot. The instructors never saw her until it was over. Distinguished honor graduate. The whispers changed that day. She wasn't just a quota anymore. She was the ghost. Now, years later, she was here, back pressed to Afghan stone, sweat dripping into her eyes, watching over men who didn't trust her. Through the scope, she saw Neptune Element move closer to the rusting hulk of a Soviet-era armored vehicle in the valley. A natural choke point, a trap waiting to be sprung. She noted the abandoned village, too empty for this time of day. Where were the people? Her instinct screamed, this was wrong. "Miller," she whispered to her spotter, 10 meters back, "where are the civilians?" 3 total, he muttered. An old man, a woman, a child, should be 30 minimum. "They were warned," she said softly. "This village was cleared before the SEALs ever got here." She keyed her radio. "Oversight, this is Ghost. Recommend delaying Neptune insertion. Indicators consistent with pre-planned ambush." "Negative, Ghost. Neptune is already en route. Report only." She bit down her frustration. Obey or watch them die. The SEALs crept closer, unaware. Reynolds, their chief, raised a fist signaling halt. For a moment Alexis thought he'd seen it too, but then she caught the shadow on the northern ridge. A glint, a weapon being set. "Contact," she hissed. "Machine gun, northern ridge, 700 meters." She keyed her mic. "Neptune actual, Ghost. Confirmed hostile position. You're about to walk into an ambush. Do you copy?" No reply. Static jammed. Below, the SEALs advanced. She exhaled slowly, her father's words echoing. "A sniper has no ego, only purpose." The crosshairs steadied on the chest of a man lifting an RPG. She knew what Colonel Mitchell's orders had been. Observe only. Engage only if American lives were in immediate danger. And now they were. Alexis took in one last breath. A court-martial was better than 8 folded flags. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The valley exploded into chaos. Who had fired the first shot? The SEALs didn't know. They only heard the thunder roll across the valley, the unmistakable crack of a suppressed .50 cal echoing against stone. 1 second, an RPG was being raised toward their position. The next, the man holding it lay crumpled in the dust. Chaos followed. Alexis was already shifting, already working the bolt, already aligning the reticle on the next hostile. Her world shrank to measurements and pauses, to the steady drum of breath she had learned to tame since childhood. Target 2, PKM gunner, 920 meters, wind steady, 5 knots left to right. "Send it," Miller murmured, his spotting scope fixed. The Barrett roared. The second gunner dropped. Target 3, 870 meters, minimal correction. Another squeeze, another body falling into dust. Through the radio came the voice of Chief Reynolds, panicked and demanding. "Who's engaging? Identify yourself." Alexis ignored it. She didn't need their thanks, and she could live with their anger. What she couldn't live with was silence. 8 folded flags draped in stars and carried to grieving families because she had obeyed orders instead of her instincts. 3 more fighters sprinted down the eastern slope, rifles raised, trying to flank the SEALs. Alexis exhaled, firing in rhythm, thump, 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 each man dropping in his stride. 6 down in 11 seconds, Miller reported flatly, awe edged in his voice. The valley was unraveling. More figures poured from a compound north of the village, moving not like scattered insurgents but with precision, discipline. 15, maybe more. These weren't farmers with AKs. These were trained soldiers. "Neptune 2, this is Ghost," Alexis transmitted, her voice firm, steady. 15 hostiles maneuvering on your position, grid 42 Sierra uniform. Recommend immediate displacement. But before Williams could respond, a rocket-propelled grenade slammed into the dirt beside the rusted APC the SEALs were using as cover. Shrapnel ripped the air. Reynolds went down in a flash of blood and dust. "Reynolds is hit," someone shouted below. Alexis didn't let the panic reach her. She locked in, pulling the battlefield inside her scope. Every rock, every shadow, every pocket of dust, mapped hours earlier during her 14-hour wait, was now her arsenal. A man ducked behind a mud wall. 2 rounds punched through, the second finding its mark. Another crawled into a drainage ditch. She knew the angle, had it etched on her range card. She skipped a bullet off a stone, arcing it straight into the ditch. "Neptune 2, Ghost, keep moving. I've got you covered." Williams' voice cut through, urgent, steady. "Copy, Ghost. 3 urgent casualties, 2 priority. We can't move without suppression. Cover us." "Roger." And then she entered the state her father once called the silence. The world narrowed, heartbeat vanishing, breath becoming a metronome, mind clearing until there was only math, only rhythm. 800 meters, fighter with PKM, correction plus 2.8 mils, windhold 1.8, squeeze. 750, 2 fighters moving through the wadi, adjust, fire, fire. 690, sniper hide behind a rock shelf, punch through stone, send it. 23 targets in 4 minutes, 21 confirmed kills. The battlefield shifted. But the enemy adapted. "Glint West Ridge," Miller hissed. Alexis swung her scope just in time to see dirt spit inches from her face. The shot report followed, a sharp crack that told her this wasn't panic fire. This was precision. Counter-sniper, 1,100 meters. Another round slammed into rock, closer this time. Whoever it was, they knew the dance, patience, positioning, timing. "Stay on Neptune," she ordered Miller. "I'll handle this." She pulled her lighter MRAD rifle from its pack, chambered in .338 Norma Magnum, and crawled laterally along the ridge. The other sniper fired again, not at her, but at the SEALs retreating with their wounded. The round snapped dust at Williams' boots. Alexis caught the briefest glimpse of a barrel edge peeking from behind stone. She fired, but the shot came back empty. A miss. The figure had already shifted. Her chest tightened. The movement pattern, the way he slid, how he repositioned, it was familiar, too familiar. Then her radio cracked alive, and an unfamiliar voice slid through in accented English. "The daughter of Viktor Volkov. Yes, I would recognize that shooting anywhere." Her blood chilled. "Ghost, do not respond," Colonel Mitchell snapped through another channel. "Unknown frequency, hold position." But the voice continued, deliberate, calm. "Tell William Thornton that old debts remain unpaid. This game has only just begun." Baronov. Her father's ghost. Down below, the SEALs reached the LZ, helicopters swooping in with rotor wash that blasted dust through the valley. Alexis covered them until the last bird lifted, wounded aboard. Only then did she let herself exhale. The mission had gone sideways. Reynolds lay in surgery, his future uncertain. And somewhere in the mountains, her father's old partner, the man once whispered about in Thornton's hushed warnings, had looked straight through her bullets and left her alive. Why? That question lingered louder than the echo of any shot. What price do you pay for saving lives? That question hung in the air as Alexis stood at rigid attention inside the debriefing room at Forward Operating Base Chapman. The fluorescent lights hummed. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and burned coffee. Across from her, Colonel Mitchell paced, his jaw tight, his eyes sharp as if he were dissecting every word she had given in her report. 21 confirmed kills, Mitchell repeated, his voice even but laced with tension. 2 probable, 1 counter-sniper escaped. Reynolds in surgery, 3 other wounded. And you, he stopped, fixing her with a stare that seemed to drill into bone. You disobeyed a direct order. Yes, sir, Alexis answered quietly. Do you understand what that means? She did. Disobedience could mean court-martial, dishonor, everything she had built dismantled. But what weighed heavier was the memory of 8 men still breathing because she had acted. 8 Americans are alive because of it, she said finally, voice steady. Mitchell stopped packing. For a long moment silence filled the room. Then, with a sigh, he turned away. I should end your career here and now. The door opened before he could continue. William Thornton walked in, his presence shifting the atmosphere instantly. Gray hair, lined face, the calm authority of a man who had moved shadows across continents. He laid a satellite image on the table without preamble. Colonel, you may want to reconsider, Thornton said. Mitchell bristled. I don't answer to the CIA. And I'm not asking you to, Thornton replied smoothly. This was taken 30 minutes after the engagement. Recognize the man in the photo. Mitchell leaned in. Alexis did too. The grainy satellite capture showed a tall, broad figure meeting with men identified as Haqqani leadership. His face, though partially shadowed, carried a weight she instantly recognized. Baranov. Her pulse kicked. Your opposing sniper, Mitchell asked. Yes, Alexis answered. His movement, his precision, his voice on our comms, it was him. Thornton's tone hardened. Mikhail Baranov wasn't just a KGB officer. He was the Soviet Union's most lethal sniper in Afghanistan. 53 confirmed kills, many alongside. He glanced at Alexis. Viktor Volkov. Her father's name felt like a bullet cracking air. Mitchell's gaze snapped to her. Your father. Alexis swallowed hard. He never told me details, sir, only fragments. Thornton continued. Victor defected, brought with him names, files, intelligence that shaped the end of the Cold War. Baranov never forgave him. Spent 5 years rotting in a Russian prison because he was accused of complicity. When he got out, the Soviet Union was gone. So was his career. What do men like him do with broken lives? They remember. They wait. Mitchell leaned back, rubbing his temple. And now he's training Taliban fighters in Soviet tactics, creating ambushes designed 30 years ago. Alexis spoke before she could stop herself, and using me to send a message. The colonel's eyes flicked to her. Thornton didn't deny it. This changes the mission, Mitchell said at last. You're being reassigned to a joint task force, CIA and JSOC. Your objective, locate and neutralize Baranov. Her breath caught. Alone. Not entirely. Neptune Element will continue operations under Petty Officer Williams. He requested you remain as Overwatch. Alexis blinked, surprised. After I disobeyed orders. Mitchell almost smiled. His words were, I don't care if she follows orders as long as she keeps shooting like that. Thornton added softly, but make no mistake, Baranov is now aware of you, and when men like him notice someone, His voice trailed heavy. They don't stop. Later, walking the sterile hall toward the medical bay, Alexis felt the weight settle. She had broken rules, saved lives, invited the gaze of a ghost. Through the observation window, she saw Reynolds lying in bed, head bandaged, pale. His eyes opened, locked onto hers. For a moment, no words, just the faintest nod. Not forgiveness, not even acceptance, but acknowledgement. She nodded back. That night, as she lay on her bunk cleaning her rifle in silence, her father's words returned unbidden. A sniper must have no ego, only purpose. But what happens when the purpose is tangled with blood debts older than you are? The mountains outside remained dark, silent, timeless. Somewhere in that silence, Baranov was watching. The hunter had become the hunted. What happens when the man meant to protect you is also the reason you're hunted? The question haunted Alexis as she crouched in the shadows of her new overwatch position, the Hindu Kush stretching like jagged teeth beneath her. Her Barrett M107 rested steady on the bipod. Her spotter, Sergeant Miller, scanned through the spotting scope. Neptune Element was on the move again, 8 men in silence, shadows sliding through terrain that had already tasted their blood. But before she had climbed into this perch, before she had locked eyes on the valley, there had been the night that changed her trust forever. Reynolds had asked to see her. The hospital room smelled of iodine and gauze. His head was bandaged, his face pale, but his eyes remained hard, alive. "They tell me you saved my team," he said flatly without preamble. "I did my job, Chief." "Your job was overwatch only, observation." His voice was sharp, but beneath it something cracked. "You disobeyed a direct order." Alexis met his gaze. "Yes, sir, and 8 men are still alive." Silence stretched. Reynolds shifted slightly, wincing. "Williams told me you dropped 21 tangos in under 5 minutes. Says you made shots no one else could have made." "I had good positioning," she said. "You had skill," he countered, his stare dug into her. "So why didn't you tell me about Baranov, about Thornton, about your father?" Her throat tightened. "I didn't know about Baranov until after the ambush. And Thornton, he's been part of my life since I was a child. I didn't know about Diana until recently." The name sliced the air like shrapnel. Reynolds's jaw tightened. "Diana was brilliant," he said softly, almost to himself. "Best tactical mind I'd ever seen. I trusted her completely. We were going to be married after that deployment." Alexis felt her chest tighten. "I'm sorry." "Don't be, it was my mistake. I let personal feelings cloud professional judgment." His eyes sharpened again. "I won't make that mistake again. If you're playing some game, if you're hiding something connected to Thornton or your father or that Russian, I'll put you down myself." Her voice didn't waver. "No games, Chief, just the mission." Reynolds studied her, then finally gave a slight nod. "Then finish it. End Baranov before he kills more of our people." The memory replayed in her mind now as she scanned the valley, her finger resting lightly near the trigger. Miller spoke without looking up from his scope. "Still think this is a trap?" "Everything about this feels like a trap," Alexis whispered. "Baranov trained my father. My father trained me. He knows how we think. He knows where we'd hide." Her radio crackled suddenly. A secure channel, encrypted, one she recognized immediately. "Ghost, Oversight Actual," Thornton's voice came through. She adjusted her comms. "Oversight Actual, Ghost, go ahead." "New intelligence," Thornton said. "Satellite thermal picked up multiple heat signatures at the target compound, more than initial assessment, and something else, custom electronic countermeasures. Soviet design, modernized." Her stomach dropped. "Baranov." "Almost certainly," Thornton confirmed. "This isn't just an ambush, it's an invitation." "Invitation to what?" she asked. "To finish what started 30 years ago." His tone softened. "I've spoken with your father. He's en route to Bagram now." "What? Why would you bring him into this?" "I didn't," Thornton admitted. He insisted, said there are things about Baranov only he knows, weaknesses, tendencies, things that could keep you alive. Her chest tightened again, a storm of conflict rising. Her father who had hidden the truth from her. Thornton who had always played in shadows. And Baranov, the ghost who suddenly felt more like flesh. Neptune's timeline remains unchanged, Thornton continued. But I'm authorizing you to adjust your Overwatch position. If this is Baranov's game, change the rules. Understood, Alexis said. She cut the channel and turned to Miller. We're moving. He blinked. Colonel's orders were to hold here. New intel. Multiple signatures at the objective. We need elevation angle. If we stay where Baranov expects us, we're dead. Miller frowned. That puts us 600 meters closer. It puts us where he won't look, Alexis replied, already packing her gear. He knows standard procedure. We can't be predictable. They moved silently, climbing through jagged rock, boots finding purchase where the mountain allowed. Every movement was deliberate, careful, her father's mountain lessons guiding her steps even now. When they reached the new outcrop, Alexis set her rifle down, glassing the compound. The Soviet-built outpost squatted like a scar on the mountainside, repurposed by men who believed history had forgotten. Its walls overlooked 3 valleys, commanding every approach. Movement eastern perimeter, Miller murmured. 2 with AKs, 2 disciplined for locals. Alexis nodded, confirming. Baranov's work. She swept the ridgelines methodical, patient, then something, a shadow where there shouldn't be one, subtle, human. Possible hostile sniper, she said, voice low. Northwest ridge, grid 4-2 Sierra uniform. She keyed the radio. Neptune 2 ghost, possible hostile sniper northwest ridge, proceed with caution. Ghost Neptune 2, copy, Williams answered. ETA to objective 20 mics. But before she could exhale, her comms flared alive again. A new voice, smooth, accented, calm. The daughter of Viktor Volkov, it said, always so thorough, just like your father. Her blood froze. Ghost Neptune 2, Williams cut in. Who is that on the net? You're compromised. Baranov's voice continued, unhurried. Tell Neptune Element they are not my concern today. This is between old friends. Isn't that right, Alexis Mikhailovna? The name struck like a round through glass. Mikhailovna, daughter of Mikhail, but her father's name was Victor. Her throat tightened. What game was Baranov playing? Your father never told you, Baranov said softly. Of course not. Victor kept many secrets. Static swallowed the channel, leaving silence in its wake. Miller's eyes were wide. What the hell does that mean? Alexis forced her breathing steady, but inside her heart pounded. Her father, Thornton, Baranov, and now a name she wasn't supposed to have. Below, Neptune advanced, unaware. Above, Baranov's voice lingered in her headset like a ghost that refused to leave. What do you do when the enemy knows more about your family than you do? The question burned through Alexis's mind as the echo of Baranov's voice faded into static. Her hands were steady on the rifle, but her chest tightened with each beat. He had spoken her name with precision, with intimacy, as though he had known her since birth. And the way he said Mikhailovna, it had cut deeper than bullets ever could. Miller whispered, he's inside your head, don't let him get there. She adjusted her scope, glassing the compound. Neptune Element had breached the outer wall, moving fast, stacking on the entrance. From her vantage, she tracked Williams at point, 2 men covering his flanks. The seals were clean, efficient, unaware that Baranov wasn't aiming at them at all. He was aiming at her. The silence in her headset felt heavier than the mountain air. Then the compound erupted. A string of explosions shattered the stillness, concussive blasts tearing through mud-brick walls. Dust plumed upward, shrouding the valley in smoke. Screams cut the air, followed by the rattle of automatic fire. Contact, contact. Williams's voice snapped through the comms, urgent but disciplined. Multiple hostiles inside the compound, heavy weapons, possible bunkers. Alexis swung her scope, snapping from shadow to shadow, squeezing off rounds that found targets through the smoke. A man with an RPG. Gone. Another dragging a PKM onto the roof. Gone. But for every hostile she dropped, two more seemed to rise. Baranov hadn't just fortified the compound. He had turned it into a killing ground. "Ghost, we need suppression on that ridge northwest, 100 meters above the compound," Williams shouted. "We're pinned." "I've got it," Alexis replied, shifting her rifle. She found them quickly. 3 fighters dug into the rock, interlocking fields of fire down into the compound. She dropped the first 2 with rapid, efficient shots. The third ducked just as she fired. And then another shot came back close, too close. The crack echoed across her ridge. She froze. This wasn't random fire. This was him. Baranov. Her headset flared alive again. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "You shoot like Victor did, precise, cold, but you breathe faster when you hear my voice, just like he did when he lied." Alexis felt the world constrict. She forced her breath steady, but the words sank under her skin. "What lies?" she muttered before she could stop herself. Baranov chuckled softly. "Ah, he never told you. Thornton never told you. They kept you safe with silence, but silence is not truth, little ghost." Miller glanced at her, confused, but she didn't look away from the scope. Inside the compound, the SEALs were still pinned. Williams's voice strained through comms. "We can't hold this much longer, Ghost. If you've got anything, now's the time." She swore under her breath. Staying put meant holding overwatch, doing her job. Moving meant breaking every rule, stepping off the ridge, closing distance. But every instinct screamed that Baranov had already calculated her position, already set the counter. She thought of Reynolds's words in the hospital. "If you're hiding something, I'll put you down myself." She thought of her father on their porch, saying pride kills more soldiers than bullets. And she thought of the SEALs bleeding inside that compound, men who had doubted her, men who would die if she clung to doctrine. "I'm moving," she said finally. Miller grabbed her arm. "That's suicide." "It's survival," she replied. "If I stay here, he knows every angle. If I move, I change the game." Miller hesitated, then nodded grimly. "Then let's move." They packed fast, sliding down jagged rock, weaving into shadow. Every sound felt amplified, the scrape of boots, the clatter of a loose stone, the hammering of her pulse in her ears. Halfway down, the world cracked again. A bullet slammed into stone inches from her head, showering her with grit. Baranov's voice followed, soft, almost tender. "Yes, move closer, make it interesting." They dove into cover, hearts pounding. Alexis's hands shook for only a moment before she forced them still. "Ghost Neptune 2, Williams barked through comms. "We're losing men, where the hell are you?" "Moving to secondary overwatch," Alexis answered. "Hold on." They climbed again, lower this time, cutting across scree toward an outcropping that gave partial sightlines into the compound. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't doctrine, but it was unpredictable. Alexis slid prone, snapped her scope onto the courtyard below. 3 hostiles were dragging a wounded SEAL into the open, using him as bait. Her stomach twisted. She exhaled, squeezed. 1, 2, 3. The fighters dropped. The SEAL crawled back toward cover, bloodied but alive. "Ghost, you just saved his life," Williams said, voice breaking with relief. But there was no relief for Alexis, only the weight of Baranov's words still echoing in her headset. She scanned the ridgelines, knowing he was out there, watching, waiting, hunting. Then, like a whisper carried by the wind, his voice returned. "Tell me, Alexis, did your father ever mention the name Sergei?" Her finger froze on the trigger. The name hit something deep, something she didn't understand but couldn't ignore. Baranov's tone sharpened. "No, of course not. He erased Sergei the way he erased me, the way he tried to erase his own past, but the past doesn't stay buried. Static swallowed the channel, leaving her alone with the weight of a name she had never heard but somehow felt in her bones. In the compound, Neptune fought to survive. On the ridges, Baranov circled unseen, and in her chest, a storm of doubt grew louder with every breath. For the first time since she pulled a trigger, Alexis felt less like a hunter and more like prey. What happens when the walls you hide behind collapse? That was the reality inside the compound. The mud brick walls that had once stood for decades now lay broken, smoke and dust curling upward into the mountain air. Neptune element was scattered, fighting room to room, every step contested. The crackle of AK fire echoed through the courtyard, punctuated by shouted commands and the dull thud of grenades. Alexis slid against the outer wall, her Barrett slung, MRAD in her hands now. This wasn't Overwatch anymore. This was survival. "Ghost, where the hell are you?" Williams's voice snapped through comms. "South wall," she answered, breath ragged from the climb. "I've got your 6. Copy, we're pinned in the central building. Multiple casualties. If you've got a way in, take it." She glanced at Miller. His face was pale but determined. "You sure about this?" "No," she admitted, "but staying out here isn't an option." They breached through a collapsed section of wall, slipping into the compound's shadowed interior. The air was thick with dust, gunpowder, the iron tang of blood. Her boots crunched on shattered brick. Then a whisper in her earpiece, cutting through the chaos like a knife. "Welcome inside, little ghost." "Baranov." She froze, scanning the gloom. The voice wasn't coming from comms this time. It was local, close, carried through a speaker hidden somewhere in the compound. "You move like him," Baranov continued. "Silent, careful, watching every corner, but you hesitate where he would not. He taught you well, yes, but he lied to you better." "Ignore it," Miller hissed. "Psychological ops, he's baiting you." But Alexis's chest was tight. Every word struck like a shot. They crept deeper. A corridor opened to the courtyard where Williams and 2 SEALs exchanged fire with enemies dug in on the opposite side. She dropped to prone, sighted quickly, and fired. 2 hostiles fell. Williams shouted, "Ghost, that you?" "Yeah," she called back. "About damn time." The brief relief was crushed instantly by another explosion. The roof above them caved, sending dust and debris crashing down. Alexis shielded her face, ears ringing. When the haze cleared, Miller was down, bleeding from a shard embedded in his shoulder. "Go," he rasped, pressing a tourniquet around the wound. "I'll hold here." She hesitated, torn. "Go." She obeyed, forcing herself forward into the main hall. And there, through the haze, she felt him. Not seen, not yet, but felt. A presence, steady, unhurried, like a predator circling in tall grass. Then his voice again, calm, deliberate. "Your father never told you about the boy, did he? Sergei, his brother, the one he left behind when he fled, left him to starve while he ran with Thornton's secrets." Alexis froze mid-step. Her father had a brother. Baranov's voice softened, almost pitying. Victor was no hero. He traded blood for freedom, and now his daughter kills in his shadow. Just another lie passed to another generation. She wanted to scream back, to deny it, but her throat closed. Gunfire snapped her back. William staggered into view, dragging a wounded SEAL. "We're losing this fight, Ghost. We need extraction, now." She shook herself, raised her rifle, and fired, cutting down 2 more attackers pushing into the courtyard. But her hands trembled now, not from fear of bullets, but from the cracks widening inside her. Her father, a brother she never knew, Baranov circling like a wolf with truths sharp as teeth. She pressed her back to the wall, breath ragged, and whispered to herself, "Purpose. No ego, just purpose." The fight raged on. Neptune held their ground by inches, Alexis covering every flank she could. Her shots were precise, devastating, But inside her, questions screamed louder than the gunfire. Finally, in the smoke of the collapsing hall, she saw him. For an instant. A tall figure in dark fatigues, face obscured by a scarf, moving with the fluid certainty of a man who had hunted his whole life. He raised his rifle, but not at her. Not yet. Their eyes met through the haze, cold, patient, familiar. Baranov. And then he was gone, slipping into shadow before she could squeeze the trigger. Her radio crackled, Williams shouting, "Birds inbound. 60 seconds, hold the courtyard." She steadied her breathing, poured every doubt into focus, and fired until her magazine ran dry. The compound shook with rotor wash as helicopters swooped in, side gunners laying down suppressive fire. Neptune scrambled aboard with their wounded. Alexis was the last, her boots hitting the deck as the Black Hawk lifted into the night sky. Through the open ramp, she stared back at the smoking compound, and in the swirling dust below, she swore she saw him, standing tall, watching her rise away. Baranov had let her live. And that was worse than death. How do you fight an enemy who knows your family better than you do? That question followed Alexis all the way back to Bagram. The Black Hawk touched down hard on the tarmac, its rotors kicking grit into the Afghan night. She stepped off last, boots heavy, rifle slung, exhaustion pressing into her bones. Neptune Element filed out ahead of her, bloodied but alive, dragging their wounded to waiting medics. Williams threw her a glance, gratitude mixed with exhaustion, but said nothing. She walked toward the hangar, where the lights glared too bright and the air smelled of jet fuel and sweat. Inside, Colonel Mitchell waited, arms crossed, jaw tight, and beside him her father, Viktor Volkov. Time had not softened him. His shoulders were still broad, his eyes sharp beneath graying hair. When he saw her, his face cracked into something she couldn't name, relief, regret, pride, guilt, all tangled into one. "Alexis," he said quietly. Her chest tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" His brow furrowed. "Tell you what?" "About Baranov, about Sergei." Her voice broke on the name. Victor's eyes flicked to Thornton, who stood in the shadows of the hangar like a sentinel. Thornton gave the smallest nod, as if confirming the inevitable. Victor exhaled long and heavy and sat down on a crate. "Sergei was my brother, my younger brother. We grew up in Minsk. He idolized me, followed me everywhere. When I defected, I left him behind. I had no choice. If I tried to take him, they would have killed us both." His hands trembled slightly. "When I reached the West, I thought I could send for him. But by then, Sergei was gone, starved or taken, I never knew which. Baranov never let me forget. He said I betrayed blood. He was right." Alexis's throat closed. "You lied to me." "I protected you." "No," she whispered. "You protected yourself." Victor's gaze sharpened, pain in his eyes. "Alexis." But she stepped back, shaking her head. Thornton's voice cut in, calm and deliberate. "Baranov blames your father for his prison years, for the collapse of his world. But Sergei, that's what makes it personal. He believes Victor abandoned him. He sees you as the legacy of that betrayal." Alexis stared at them both, her pulse pounding. "So I'm not just his target, I'm his message." Mitchell cleared his throat, impatient. "All of this is useful, but the fact remains. Baranov is alive, trained, and operating in my AO. He knows our tactics, he knows our weaknesses, and he's fixated on one of my operators." He pointed at Alexis. "That makes this not just personal, it makes it dangerous." Victor rose slowly, his face hardening. "Then let me finish it. He is my burden." "No," Alexis snapped before she realized the word had left her lips. All eyes turned to her. Her fists clenched. "Baranov isn't just after you anymore, he's after me. He's been inside my comms, inside my head, telling me things I should have known from you. He won't stop. If anyone ends this, it has to be me." Her father's eyes glistened with something between pride and sorrow. "You are strong, Alexis, stronger than I was, but Baranov, he is a monster I helped create. She held his gaze steady. Then I'll be the one to put him down. Silence hung, thick as the desert night. Thornton broke it with a cough. Intel suggests Baranov's moving east toward coast. He's not retreating, he's preparing. Likely planning to cut supply lines, bleed us dry, and draw you into him. He doesn't want to escape. He wants an ending. Mitchell's jaw tightened. Then we give him one. Neptune redeploys in 48 hours. Volkov, you're still overwatch, but if the opportunity comes, he stopped, locking eyes with her. Take it. Later in the barracks, Alexis sat on her bunk, rifle across her knees. The weight of her father's words pressed into her. A brother she never knew. A past built on silence. A legacy she hadn't chosen but carried anyway. She wanted to hate him, but more than that, she wanted to understand. Thornton found her there, sitting in the dim glow of the single lamp. He never meant to hurt you, he said quietly. He lied to me my whole life. Sometimes lies are the only way men like him know how to love. She looked up sharply. Is that what you told him? That silence was love? Thornton didn't answer. His lined face was unreadable. After a moment, he said, Baranov isn't just fighting a war, he's waging a story. To him, every bullet is a reminder. Every death is proof that the past isn't finished. You can't beat him by outshooting him. Then how? She asked. You have to outlive him. The words echoed long after he left. That night, as she tried to sleep, the base alarm blared. Sirens wailed across Bagram, boots thundered in the corridors. Alexis snapped upright, rifle in hand, adrenaline flooding her system. The loudspeaker crackled. Indirect fire north perimeter, all units to stations. She rushed outside with the others, scanning the horizon. Mortar impacts flared in the distance. Then her headset flared alive, her private channel, the one only a handful knew. Baranov's voice, calm and close. Sleep lightly, Alexis. You cannot protect them all. Her blood ran cold. He was here, not in some distant valley. Here, outside the wire, taunting her through the night. And this time, it was Neptune element he was after. It was her. What do you do when the ghost you've hunted finally steps into the light? The sirens still screamed across Bagram as Alexis sprinted toward the northern perimeter, boots pounding the packed dirt, rifle tight against her shoulder. Mortar flares lit the sky in arcs of fire, and the air stank of cordite and dust. Soldiers scrambled for cover, shouting over the chaos. But she wasn't listening to them. She was listening to him. Baranov's voice in her headset was calm, deliberate, as though he were walking beside her. I could end this base tonight. Mortars, rockets, suicide bombers waiting for my signal. But that isn't what I want, Alexis. What I want is you. Her pulse thudded. She ducked behind a blast wall, breath ragged. Why me? She hissed into the mic. Because you are him, Baranov replied. Victor's blood, Victor's shame. He left Sergei to die, and you carry the guilt he never faced. Kill me or I kill you. Either way, the story ends where it began. A shadow loomed beside her, her father rifle slung, face lined with strain. Stay here, Victor said, voice sharp. He wants me. He always wanted me. No, Alexis snapped. He's after me now, he made that clear. Victor's eyes burned. You are not ready. She met his gaze, fierce. Then you made me ready. Before he could answer, the next mortar round slammed into the ground 50 meters away, showering them with earth. Colonel Mitchell's voice cut through comms. Outer wire breached. Enemy contact at Sector 4. All units engage. Victor gripped her shoulder hard. If you face him, do not face him with hate. Hate clouds aim, purpose clears it. She nodded once, then let's finish this. Together they pushed toward Sector 4. The night was chaos, tracers arcing, shouts, the rattle of gunfire. But through it all, Alexis felt it, a gravity pulling her forward toward the ridge beyond the wire where the mortars had been firing. And then through her scope she saw him. Baranov. He stood tall amid the smoke, rifle in hand, face bare at last. Older, yes, but unbowed. His eyes locked on hers through the distance, cold and certain. She exhaled, steadying her breath. But before she could fire, his voice slipped into her headset again. "Do you want the truth before you kill me, Alexis?" Victor left Sergei not by accident but by choice. He chose himself. He chose Thornton. And he chose you, a life not yet born. Do you see now? You are the daughter of betrayal. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Victor's voice beside her cracked the air. "Don't listen, he lies." Baranov raised his rifle, not at Victor but at her. For a heartbeat the world held still. And Alexis remembered her father's words. No ego, only purpose. She slowed her breath, ignored the voice, ignored the past, focused only on the now. Her reticle found center mass. She squeezed. The rifle cracked. Baranov staggered, a red bloom spreading across his chest. He looked at her one last time, not with rage but with something like recognition. Then he collapsed into the dust. Silence followed. The mortars ceased. The gunfire ebbed. Across the ridge, fighters began to melt into the darkness without their leader. Victor lowered his rifle slowly. His eyes glistened in the flare of distant fires. "You did what I could not." Alexis reloaded with shaking hands. "No, I did what I had to." They stood together in the smoke, father and daughter, shadows carved by the flames. But the silence between them was heavier than the battle had been. Later, as dawn broke over the Hindu Kush, Alexis sat alone on the tarmac. Her rifle lay beside her, barrel scorched from the night. She stared at the horizon, its edges painted gold, and thought of the man she had killed. Baranov had spoken truths and lies so tightly bound she couldn't untangle them. Maybe her father had betrayed Sergei. Maybe he hadn't. Maybe Baranov had twisted the story to poison her. She would never know. What she did know was this. She wasn't her father's shadow. She was Baranov's vendetta. She wasn't anyone's legacy but her own. Thornton found her there, silent, staring into the rising sun. "It's over," he said softly. She shook her head. "No, it never really ends, does it?" He didn't answer. She rose, slinging her rifle, her movement steady now. The weight in her chest had shifted, not gone, but different. Not a burden, a purpose. As she walked back toward the base, the wind carried her father's old words, words she now understood in a way she never had before. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.